There's not that many news outlets that are covering Canadian Jewish arts these days, so we're really doing something unique. Hi, I'm Ilana Zakon.
And I'm David Sklar.
And we're the hosts of Culturally Jewish.
In these times right now of growing anti-Semitism, I think a lot of Jewish artists are feeling very isolated from their own arts communities.
You know, it's very isolating being in the arts world in Canada, and we get a chance to meet people from all over the country who are dealing with it in all sorts of different ways.
It also makes me feel more proud to be a Jewish artist right now. We would say there's no one out there who understands what we're going through, who feels the way we feel. Are we going crazy, right? Or is the world going crazy? And when we get together and we chat with these artists, we say we are not alone, that there are other people who are going through the same thing. And it actually makes me more proud to be a Jew and a Jewish artist.
To support our work and to keep up to date on everything that's happening at the Canadian Jewish News, visit thecjn.ca/donate.
I was in Philadelphia visiting my newest great-grandchild, Benjamin, and I get this call, and this lady says, "Congratulations." And I said, "Excuse me, I think you got the wrong number." And I hung up.
That's Mariette Doduck, a Vancouver Holocaust survivor and educator, recalling how she first learned that she'd been awarded the Order of Canada by the Governor-General's office for her contribution to building a better Canada. It was a similar story for Pinchas Gutter, a Toronto-based Holocaust survivor and educator who also got a strange phone call out of the blue from a number he didn't recognize.
I thought it was one of these scams and things like that, so I didn't answer it.
Eventually, the very serious person on the other end of the line at the Governor-General's office straightened both of them out separately, so Dodeck and Gutter learned to their great surprise and delight that they were on this winter's list of 88 illustrious Canadians to receive one of Canada's highest civilian honors. They join the list of nearly a dozen Canadian Holocaust survivors who've been similarly honored in recent years, including the late Max Eisen, Professor Robert Krell, and Eva Olsen, just to name a few. Dodeck's family and Gutter's friends have been working separately on their nomination applications for years, and they admit they lobbied the Governor-General's team not to delay, with most survivors now in their 90s, and actually fewer than 6,000 of Canada's 40,000 original survivors still alive today. Dodeck is turning 90 this year, and Gutter is 92. Yet they both vow they'll continue to speak to schools and adults and anyone who will listen to their Holocaust experiences, as the lessons are more urgent than ever in the wake of virulent anti-Semitism in Canada and around the world since October 7th. And they're both glad that this week those lessons are receiving renewed attention as part of Monday's 80th anniversary commemoration of the liberation of Auschwitz, where Mariette Doduck's mother and two brothers were murdered.
I don't want my great-grandchildren to have to fight this kind of anti-Semitism and Jew hate.
I'm Ellin Bessner, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Monday, January 27th, 2025. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Dodeck and Gutter are already proudly wearing their small Order of Canada lapel pins. They've been told the formal induction ceremony with all the pomp and circumstance will take place only later in the year at the Governor-General's residence in Ottawa. Despite living on different coasts, Dodeck and Gutter know each other well. They're both child survivors. They've both gone on the March of the Living to Auschwitz. They've both written books about their lives and have spent their lifetimes in Canada immersed in community work, like Gutter's being a cantor at Toronto's Kiever Synagogue and volunteering with seniors at Baycrest, while Dodeck helped found Vancouver's Holocaust Education Centre and was president of her Beth Israel Synagogue. Dodeck was 5 when the Nazis invaded her home city of Brussels. Her mother sent her into hiding with non-Jews, where she had to keep silent to survive. Eventually, she became a messenger for the resistance. She came to Canada as a war orphan when she was 12 years old in 1947, together with 3 of her oldest surviving siblings. They all eventually settled in Vancouver, and one, Esther, recently passed away. Meanwhile, Pinchas Gutter was born into a Hasidic family in Poland. When the Nazis invaded, he was 7. He, his parents, and his twin sister moved into the Warsaw Ghetto, where his father made and sold wine, until his family was deported to Majdanek. His parents and sister were immediately killed. He survived 4 concentration camps, 2 slave labor camps, and a forced death march. He was liberated in Theresienstadt 5 months after Auschwitz was. He lived in many countries, including Israel and South Africa, before coming to Canada in the mid-1980s. They join me now to describe what winning the Order of Canada means to them and why, despite all their years teaching about hate, they worry about their own great-grandchildren growing up in an atmosphere of fear. Mazel tov. What does one say? What do you say when someone Jewish gets an Order of Canada?
That's what you say, mazel tov. I got my first envelope with my Mariette Doduck CM this morning.
Wow, that's cool. What was it? Was it a bill? Was it a bill? I hope not.
No, it wasn't. It was a donation card. But it's not complete, of course, till we arrive in Ottawa.
The ceremony. And of course, at the moment, I think the Governor General is very busy with the Prime Minister resigning and things. So, we should just be patient. We will be patient.
So I'm not worried about it, but I am delighted. I better say, Pinchas, it was when I just met you, I saw you at other conferences, but that you and I got it this year, which is an amazing thing.
I've got the Order of Canada, and I've had, like Mary, I'm sure she's had 50, 60 phone calls. People know, and they get to know about it. And I've been very busy, and I've been giving, as a matter of fact, I've been interviewed this morning by the CBC.
Oh, well, I'm number 2. What can I tell you? Thank you for making that. Let me ask you, what does it mean to you both to actually receive this?
I've worked all my life for children and not for public recognition, because I've always worked with children. I'm also the co-founder of the Holocaust Education. So when I arrived here in Canada in 1948, I was told that I would die when I was by the age of 30. I wouldn't see my 30th birthday. They also said that I would amount to nothing, that I would be a burden to the community or to the government. So for me, this award is an opportunity to draw attention on racism, intolerance, and anti-Semitism. I'm accepting this in recognition of all immigrants and child survivors who have arrived in Canada in a place that originally did not want us. Like the book written, None is Too Many.
Why did they say you were going to, I have to go back to what you just said, that you were going to pass away by the age of 30 and because of your deprivation and your hiding and your malnourishment and everything?
On the same time, we couldn't have a cavity. We couldn't have this. We couldn't have that. There was rules that they gave. I was only 12 years old, 11 years old. They made it so difficult. Today, they make it so free. But I wanted a better world for children because we didn't have a world. No child should live the 5 years that I lived in hiding as well. So I'm shocked and grateful and honored to receive this. I think this will be a way of maybe moving the awareness faster by this honor, because people seem to, I happen not to like publicity. I am quite shy. I'm very easy to talk to. I can speak off the cuff, but I am not comfortable in receiving something. So for me, this was like a shock.
Pinchas, what does it mean to you? Because we've heard how it's a little bit uncomfortable, but a little bit, it's almost like a circle for Mariette. But for you, how does it land, this award?
Well, my attitude was a bit different. I didn't expect to receive this award. I am always a person who kind of like doesn't believe that you get the awards and things like that. But well, let me tell you a story. When I was liberated by the Russian army on the 8th of May, the last day of the war in Theresienstadt, after a march of a death march from Germany to Czechoslovakia, we ran out, at least those people that could still, and I was reasonably well enough to be able to run out because the gates were open, the Czech gendarmes who were guarding us disappeared, and we saw Russian infantry with their rifle and They had majorca, which is tobacco, in one booth. They had these white booths and food in the other booth. But what they were doing is, I didn't know. I was at that time going on 13, and I didn't know anything about. I come from a Hasidic home, so I knew nothing about relationship between men, women, or sex or anything like that. But I saw these Russians or Czechs or whoever grabbing young women, taking them away, and being very nasty. And I felt compassion. After 5 years and 6 concentration camps, and losing my extended family and my immediate family in my Dodeck, my sister and my father and my mother were murdered the day we arrived in my Dodeck. And there I felt compassion. I saw people suffering and I felt compassion. And from that time on, whenever I feel people that need help, I try and do that. And when I came to Canada, Mary spoke children, and I help elderly people. Why? Because people don't want to be volunteers at old age homes. People dribble, they don't look very nice. You don't want to see yourself when you get old. So it's very difficult to get what people volunteer. So that was my first job. I've started doing a lot of Holocaust education and others, but I did it together with the indigenous people. I worked with all kinds of different people. When I got the message, I didn't believe it. And when I saw the actual announcement on the 18th of December, then I started believing it. For a long time, I thought it's not
real. It's not real.
Yeah, it's not real, because until you actually see it black and white and publicized, you kind of feel, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's for somebody else or something like that. So I was very apprehensive about it, and I felt extremely honored that I got it. I really felt that it would create a climate where other people would try and do the same thing. If one person can do it, another person can do it. And every person that does just a little bit can make the world a better place. And that is, you don't have to go and do and solve all the problems of the world. It's impossible. But you can do a little bit. And a little bit is important because it adds up. It adds up and it adds up and makes the world a better place.
Have you, either of you, slowed down at all in terms of how many talks you do, or you're traveling for your work?
First of all, I've never slowed down. Since I've written my book, My Childhood Unspoken, I've been booked for 2.5 years. So I'm still booked till April.
So you're still speaking every day, or?
No, I cut down to twice a week. But I'm speaking to a symposium next week, and the following week, the 27th. I have a life. I have children and great-grandchildren, and I'm expecting another great-grandchild. I'm involved with my kids, involved with other organizations as well. It's not I'm just organized in Holocaust education.
Let me ask Pinchas, are you slowing down at all in terms of your work, or still booked solid as usual?
Well, I have not slowed down because I don't believe that you can slow down and just leave this work that you are doing. So obviously, as you get older, there are certain things that you can or can't do. Now, I had a hip operation, which means that I can't walk as fast as I used to walk. I have to, for example, I've just had invitations from the Simon Wiesenthal. They offered to take me, by car, and I will. I appreciate that, because it's sometimes difficult to go and take the subway, or even I drive. I have no problem in driving. I can drive quite easily, but it's always difficult to find parking, and then you have to walk from the car.
Right.
So it's better if you can do it. But to stop, I can't even believe it. I mean, just like Mary, I have got 2 great-grandchildren in Einhorn. My grandchildren, for example, didn't know anti-Semitism in Canada, in Toronto. There was hardly anything. They didn't know. So suddenly they come to me and they ask me, what is this all about? And I have to start explaining to them how it happened in the 1930s and when I was living in Poland, and give them a history of the 2,000 years or longer of Jew hate. I don't call it anti-Semitism. I call it Jew hate. And how it started and what happened and how it goes on. And then I don't want that to happen to my great-grandchildren. I don't want them to be in a situation where they are growing up, without feeling anti-Semitism, but suddenly they are stuck because something happens, like the 7th of October, and the next thing is everybody hates Jews. I want the world not to discriminate between people. When I go out and speak to people, I tell them, I don't want you to think in terms of black, white, indigenous, or whatever. I want you to think as human beings. We are all the same. And I even tell them when I speak to them in the schools and in universities and wherever I speak to them, I say, don't even use the word tolerate. Because once you start tolerating, you discriminate. You say, this Jew is a good Jew, and this Jew. So everybody had his good Yidel in Poland before the war, but this Yidel is a good one. It's my friend. But don't. We are all the same.
I'm Michael Weisdorf, Chief Executive Officer with the Canadian Jewish News. We've put a lot of effort into trying to engage with the younger audience and the younger demographic, those who haven't really engaged with the CJN recently. They don't realize we're back. They say, I absolutely remember reading this on my Booby and Zadie's dining room table or my parents' den. We're trying to bring the Canadian Jewish News into the 21st century. The Canadian Jewish News is a not-for-profit organization, and we're also a registered journalism organization with the CRA. So we can provide tax receipts for donations at any level. To help support the Canadian Jewish News and help us continue providing free, high-quality journalism for the Jewish community, you can support us at thecjn.ca/donate. Thank you for your support and for being a part of our journey.
So I'm wondering how you tell perhaps your Jewish audiences how your life and your legacy can be effective now when we're living in this world where Jew hatred for your great-grandchildren is back.
All the years, like just before COVID, for a year, I didn't speak. No, not on Zoom, not on anything, because I felt, what did we change? In COVID, I relived Europe because I was locked in. Then came October 7th, that I couldn't breathe. And with every IDF soldier that is dying out there, it's like I'm losing a child. So even teachers, I had in one of my Pro-D days that I spoke to, and she says, I don't know how to handle the children and this hate. And I thought, good question, because October 7th didn't make just the Jews hate. All children in the world were affected by it, by the news, by their parents talking about the hate, by it happened. So she found that her non-Jewish kids in her school needed help, a counselor. She says, but I'm not trained for that. So I'm saying now, again, the education. But I find I've got a bright light. I find that my students today are better educated in the history. I find their questions much more involved. I'm not saying all these children ask me questions. In my symposium and everything, there's a long lineup. And the questions are much better than they were just before COVID. So I have to say, we are a light in the educational department of hate. But hate is, anti-Semitism has been an undercurrent our whole life. For 2,000 years, we've had this current. Like the first time I learned about Jew them down, I said to my husband, who's Canadian born, I wasn't going to marry a survivor. I said, what does that mean? He had to explain to me. These slangs that people use. So educating my lifelong, I'm not a teacher, I'm a mother, I'm a community leader that is pushing so to make it aware.
But it doesn't seem to be working because there's so much hate out there. I don't know.
Okay, so I can only say, with us Jews, it's always been an uphill fight. No matter what it is, we are going to be hated since it's an undercurrent thing. It's just that I've never seen since I saw in 1939 when I was sent away from my mother, and I lost everybody but 8 of my siblings. So what can I say to you? That we must keep fighting. We must keep teaching the world. And like it said with the Hanukkah, we are the light. But like I tell my students and the teachers, now that I told you my story, you are now a witness. You can't say that you didn't meet a survivor. You are now mine, and you will always be my witness.
I just want to tell you, you take refugees. In the 1930s, nobody wanted to take refugees. Jewish refugees were anathema. Now, things have changed. The world has changed. There's no question about it. I mean, according to the news, Canada has taken in 30,000 Syrian refugees that ran away. And then they took refugees from other places. Germany, who hates refugees, who hates other people. The German people don't really like foreigners. They've taken in, first of all, the Turks, and then they recently taken in Syrians and others. And people are actually doing things for refugees. The thing is, as bad things are, there is a change. So we do continue changing for the better. And I am a great believer. I was always an optimist. At the moment, I am a bit despondent because, things are going the other way. But I still believe, and this is what I try and achieve in my teaching, and that's why I don't stop. The most important thing is not to be a bystander. Be involved to a certain extent, as much as you can. You can't always, not everybody can go and be a hero. And not everybody can do certain things or other things, but there's always something you can do. And if you do that little bit, you will make the world a better place for everybody. And that is the most important aspect as far as I'm concerned. And that is why I'm not going to stop. I mean, like Mary, I've got quite a few things. There's a limit to how much I can do nowadays, not as much as I could. And Dorothy, of course, my wife, wants me to kind of do as little as possible because she takes it out of you. Of course it takes it out of you. People don't realize that the Holocaust, you get liberated, but you don't get liberated from the Holocaust. The Holocaust is always inside you.
You're right, Pinchas.
A few weeks ago, we were in Pittsburgh and spent 4 or 5 days together with our grandchildren, great-grandchildren. And it was a machaya, as they say in Yiddish, it was really fantastic. And that's basically what I want to do. I want
That's what I said.
them to enjoy themselves. I want them to grow up and not to have any kind of suffering.
Fear.
Yeah, I am scared for them. I am. There's no question about it. I wasn't scared in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Me too.
Run around in the Warsaw Ghetto. I mean, I was all of 8, 9, 10. I did everything that they didn't allow you. I went to a cheder underground with 7 other children, with my father, could still have a melamed to teach us, and we studied Nadarim with the Moran, something very the Talmud. And we did everything that they couldn't. And I wasn't scared of the German. I was fearful of something that they're going to do to me, but I wasn't scared inside me, nothing at all. Today, I feel that I don't want my children to have any kind of fears about it.
But I wanted to tell you, Pinchas, before we finish, I have 6 great-grandchildren, expecting my 7th great-grandchildren. Only from 3 married grandchildren, I have 7 of them. So I've got a lot. to live for, but I am also fearful for them. And this is what I wrote in my book. I did this and will keep on doing this to make their life maybe a safer place. I don't want them to live. I never was afraid. Like they asked me, were you afraid? I left home, I was 4.5 years old. And I didn't come out till 1945, but I did a lot of other things. But when I came to Canada at 11 and a half, I was in a child's body, but in an adult mind. That children today, like I said, when I tell the teachers, I don't want your children to live in fear. This October 7th is affected, not just. So I think they're fearing, but I'm not fearing about Canada. I'll tell you a story. My grandson-in-law, my granddaughter's husband, Zionist young couple, they have 3 kids. When October 7th, my grandson-in-law said to me, Bobby, I'd like to take my family to Israel. And I said, John, you were born in Canada. We are the front people. You have to stay in Canada. We have to fight here. IDF will always fight for us. But if you are thrown out of Canada, today you have a place to go, as I didn't when I was a child. So you are safe. You must stay in Canada. We must stay and fight here in our country. In every country in the world, people shouldn't run away. They should stay in the country where they are and fight their government and fight their newspaper, fight their computers, all line of communication. We are helping IDF. That's my last words.
That is the last word. And I want to thank both of you. It was a complete honor. And I hope to see you together in Ottawa when they have the ceremony. God willing, they don't wait too long.
Amen.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, made possible in part thanks to the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. Pinchas Gutter was the very first person to participate in a groundbreaking project using 3-dimensional, fully interactive hologram displays of Holocaust survivors, so people can interact with survivors in museums and classrooms even after the survivors are gone. To learn more about this, or to order their books, or to just watch the 80th anniversary ceremonies live from Auschwitz on Monday, where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was scheduled to attend, go to the links in our show notes. The Daily is produced by Zachary Judah Kaufman. The executive producer is Michael Freeman, and our music was composed by Dov Beck-Levine. Thanks so much for listening.
Right after October 7th, the CJN really had a challenge of how we were going to cover what we knew was going to be the most important story, likely of our journalistic careers. And we think about, what are the stories that we uniquely can tell? We have strong and deep ties and relationships in the community. We can go to the same event that everyone else, all the mainstream media will cover, but we will cover it differently. We'll cover it smarter because we have an understanding of the context and the nuance of the communities that we've worked in. My name is Lila Sarek, and I'm the news editor at the Canadian Jewish News. The CJN wants to continue to cover important stories across the country and important stories in Israel as well. And we can only do it with your help. Visit thecjn.ca/donate to support our work. And if you live in Canada, you will also receive a Canadian tax receipt. Thank you.